Go on, Nick. You've had your hand up for a while.
Sorry.
So I'm with you. I'm open to things being rewritten. For example, until the Clone Wars TV show, there were two storylines of how the Death Star plans were basically stolen. And we've played one of them. One of them was Star Wars Battlefront 2, with the prison break, and then they stole the plans from the Death Star itself as they escaped. And there was also, I can't remember what the video game was called, but there was a whole video game based around, in the 2000s, obviously, because that's when peak Star Wars gaming was. Yeah. Like literally based around the nicking of the Death Star plans. So, and then Rogue One came along, and not only did it reveal like a new way of how Death Star plans were stolen, and let me say, top quality banter story, it's a brilliant story, but also it dealt with one of the biggest flaws of Star Wars, which is why did the Death Star have such a weak point if it was such an indestructible weapon? Like
I think, I mean, obviously sometimes you need to kind of overwrite previous things that have been stated, and I think there's something called Death of the Author, where basically the person who, like George Lucas, he's not dead, but like he's no longer associated with Star Wars, and I'm sure he's got some sway, but like, you know, he doesn't control what Disney does with it. So basically, they no matter how close they try and follow it, they lose the vision of what Star Wars is to specifically George Lucas. So, you know, there's way, you know, you can't have a franchise spanning, God, how long has it been? 50?
70
years? 60 years?
When did they start making the film? 75, 76? Because it was released
so
in
about
77.
60 odd years. Let's say like 50 to 60 odd years, without getting something wrong, or having to like erase a previous element of your story.
Yeah. No, I get that. I do understand there has to be, like, Asajj Ventress again turning up in the Bad Batch. That was, sorry, spoiler alert if you've not seen it yet. Like, she was dead. She was dead. There was an arc in the cancelled series of the Clone Wars where she died. And there's a novel of that called Dark Disciple. Read it. It's spectacular. But it was part of canon until the Bad Batch. And I'm okay with that because it was done in a very respectful way to the source material. It was done in a very clever way in the which we still don't really know what happened. It's not been told. All that we know that she is there. So the story's not necessarily been changed about what went down in that arc, but maybe it just turned out slightly different. So I'm sort of with you, Joe. I do understand, like, stories do need to change to make them better. They need to evolve, basically. But at the same time, we cannot deny that The Last Jedi has not been. We cannot deny it's not been respectful to the source material that was already there.
Yeah,
and the same with Rise of Skywalker. I think the Force Awakens, it was all right. Like it didn't do anything. It didn't do anything huge. It was based on some expanded universe material. Like, so for example, they, instead of Jason Solo, they had Kylo Ren. Like, there was based on some of the expanded universe, but then fucking fucked it.
I'd like to step in here. First of all, Star Wars was released. A New Hope was released on the 25th of May, 1977. So in 2 years, it'll be 50 years old. Congratulations, Star Wars, on that one.
So when did they start working on it, though? Was it 74, 75?
Oh, it's so I can find that in a second for you.
It's all right. You don't have to. It's fine.
I'll do it. But that's not my point. My point is, and I'm gonna come to what I know, because Star Wars I like, but I am a Trekkie, so I'm gonna go to Star Trek, and Star Trek is the older franchise. And the reason I'm bringing Star Trek, and this is not me saying Star Trek is better than Star Wars. I'm definitely not saying that. But what I am saying is Star Trek has what's called beta canon, whereas Star Wars has Legends. Star Trek has beta canon. Now, but what beta canon is it's the books, it's the video games, it's anything that's not a Star Wars TV show.
Star Trek TV show.
Sorry, a Star Trek TV show. That is what beta canon is. So, like, I could really, really enjoy Star Trek Online, which is a game that I play. I'm quite well known in that community. That is beta canon in Star Trek lore. Like, something will happen in Star Trek Online, and I'll be like, oh, that's great, explains this. And then the TV show might do something different. And I'm like, oh, but I really, really enjoyed what they did in this. But Star Trek is really awesome because it tells you that. It says, no, this is beta canon. And then the game itself will change its story based on what happened in the show, which I find really interesting because it's a live service game, so it has the ability to do that sort of thing. Obviously, older Star Trek games go outdated based on different lore, but by having this separate beta canon works really well. But then there are times where the Star Trek shows will contradict themselves because it is Star Trek came out in the 60s. So there are times where things like, the Gorn in the 60s is a man in a rubber suit. And it looks like you watch it and it looks really, and he moves like this. But now we've got Strange New Worlds, which is the newest version of Star Trek, which is basically a sort of rehash of the original series, which fans are really loving. Some people don't like it, but I'm ignoring those people. But you've got a completely redesigned Gorn. They look more like the elites from Halo, which I think is really awesome.
Oh, that's weird.
But no, just they have an exosuit for space, which looks a bit like so think sort of Halo 4 elite spacesuit, sort of that's what they wear.
Yeah.
And then when they finally take it off and it's revealed underneath, it's sort of similar to what we see in the early Star Trek, but with better CG.
Is your point basically it's okay to have not things that go with the actual canon and just have separate things?
My point is, yes, that you can have things that separate from canon, but not in the same way that you're going to step in and think. What I'm saying is, I think that, like, how much is Legends and how much is canon? If you had two separate canons, it would be fine. Like, there's canon having the Star Wars Legends. Star Wars Legends is huge, and you've got things like Chewie dying. You've got lots of things that people don't like. And it is so much content, in fact, that, and it's going to turn a little bit religious, but it's like the Bible in terms of contradictions, like what you just we were talking we were doing the research about Queen Amidala and who became before her, and we were like, oh, it's a queen, but now you're telling me there's a king before. It's that level of contradiction within Star Wars lore itself. That's why Disney. I'm not saying Disney should have thrown Legends out. That's not what I'm saying, but I do think that there is a slight sensibility to doing that. Like, Star Trek barely ever mentions things from its beta canon, but when it does, you get the fans going, woohoo!
Yeah.
But as Joe said earlier, like, you can't build a show on getting something lore accurate, because if you do that, I'm not going to be interested. I could make you a really lore accurate show about Ewoks, but I don't think you're going to watch it.
Well, no, but I think there's certain. Sorry, I don't know if you're done with that or not. I think there's way you can rewrite canon. You can do that, but you have to do it respectfully. That doesn't mean you rewrite the main content, aka all the Star Wars main content that is held in high regard now. So I'm talking about stuff like The Mandalorian, the prequels, the original trilogy, the Clone Wars. That stuff and Rogue One and Solo, I guess. I like Solo. That wasn't me shrugging off Solo. I do like it. But there's those things anything that does well in the future has to be kind of accurate to those things, because they are not only well received, but they're extremely well written.
But I'm gonna stop you there, Nick, because we have people commenting on videos all the time saying they hate prequels, they hate Mando. The Star Wars fan base itself is
very diverse,
divided on so many things. So how do you appeal to a fan base that half the fans are like, why is there a woman Jedi? And the other half of the fans are like, there's not enough women Jedi. And then there's one fan saying, I just want to see explosions. And there's one fan saying, this writing wasn't complex enough. And another person saying, and I want to see them kill each other. Another person saying, no, you can't kill off main characters.
I'm going to turn to my boy Sam Witwer. He did this.
Okay, go on.
He explained this in a very, very good way. In the way that you've got to trust the people who know what they're talking about and know how to do that. And the people who are writing the sequels were not people who were capable of doing that. For example, Rian Johnson didn't know what he was working with, and Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams just let him do his thing. Rise of Skywalker is a different story because that's just a byproduct of The Last Jedi, in my opinion. But then you've got people like Sam Witwer. I know he's a very controversial topic between the three of us, but Star Wars Theory. You've got Dave Filoni. You've got Jon Favreau. You've got these people who are available for Star Wars to talk to, and also who know their shit about Star Wars. And Dave Filoni has rewritten Star Wars himself. He rewrote the clones having chips in their heads. He knows how to do some stuff that makes sense and also rewrite source material, make it a good story, but also treat the source material with respect if it's getting changed. There is a fine line there. There's doing it respectfully and there's doing it disrespectfully. Like, no matter what you say, I know there are some people who have commented on our videos as saying the clones having chips in their heads as...
they didn't like chips
in their head.
Like, how do you make it... What?
It isn't...
How do you make people happy?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you can't. The sad thing is you're always going to upset someone doing anything. Any kind of story you make is not going to... There's going to be at least a section of the community that is not going to like it.
I think you have... Yes, you can't please everyone, but if you've got a lot of people saying the same thing about something that you've done, that's when you kind of got to take notice of it. If this is like one or two people saying, oh, this doesn't work because of this, and it not catching on, then that's fine. But for example, The Last Jedi was so divisive that you've got to be like, oh, we've done something wrong here.
I know, but that's the problem, Nick. It was so divisive. I mean,
that's my point. That's my point, James.
You've already stolen one of my points. I'm stealing your point. Okay, but I'm going to expand on your point. I'm stealing it, but I'm going to add something to it. Okay, which was, and now I can't remember what I said. Fuck you. What was I saying? Oh, fuck. What was the last thing I said before Nick said?
That's why it was divisive, or something.
Yeah, that's sorry. That's why it was divisive. And after it was divisive, Disney panicked. It's why Solo failed, which we've talked about it being a good film, and it flopped at the box office, which we all agree it shouldn't have happened because it's not a bad film. But it was following on from Last Jedi. And then you had the panic of Rise of Skywalker, which, as we've discussed, is basically just retconning Last Jedi. But some people say they should have doubled down and continued. We should have seen something different, something come out of the negatives of Last Jedi. Like I said, when I first saw Last Jedi, I really liked it, but then I watched all the videos and I was like, they pointed out all the plot holes and I hated it. And it was just like, I saw that film 3 times in the cinema because, I was on tour and I had nothing better to do. So it's sort of like, how do you write a good Star Wars? And you can have loads of people like Star Wars Theory writing stuff. Dave Filoni, you've got so many Dave Filoni haters out there.
What?
It just gets...
There are people who don't like...
There's people
I have never ever seen someone who hates that man. I have never... Have you not?
I've seen so many...
That.
I've seen so many comments. I've seen so many comments of people saying they don't like... Yeah, I don't know if it's on our stuff, but I've seen loads of comments like, oh, I don't like what Dave Filoni did.
I think you're referring to The Mandalorian Season 3. I will agree that The Mandalorian Season 3 is weaker than the other 2 seasons. However, I don't think it's bad. I think it's got some silly moments in there that maybe go a little bit too far with the silliness. But at the same time, you can't have Star Wars without silliness. That's my point. That's one of the things that makes Star Wars better than other sci-fi, is the silliness and the kind of humanization of it. But yeah, but
then you've got the problem like that. Mandalorian is Disney Star Wars. Yes, it was Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni together. But that was, again, it was after Last Jedi it came out. So that was post Last Jedi.
The whole of The Mandalorian was post Last Jedi.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sort of losing the plot.
Yes,
but what I'm saying is that loads of people say I hate Disney Star Wars, I hate Disney Star Wars. They've changed, they've retconned stuff, but then they do make some good shit.
They do, but that's because of the people who are in charge of that shit. So for example, when because you've seen the footage of George Lucas sitting on the production of The Mandalorian, right? You've seen that.
I have not.
Yeah,
actually. No, I've not.
Dave Filoni was in talks with George Lucas throughout the entirety of this. You see, who was the voice of Kanan? Who's the guy who was Fred in Scooby-Doo? What's his name? Someone tell me. He voice acted Kanan.
Wait, is it like from the live action Scooby-Doo movies? Or is
he's Fred in the live action Scooby-Doo movies.
Is he Kanan?
Oh, the live action. I actually might know this. Oh shit.
He is Kanan Jarrus. He is the voice of Kanan Jarrus.
I've got his face in
not know that.
He is,
He's
regardless of who his name is, it escapes me. Someone look it up while I'm explaining this. He is a huge Star Wars fan and a huge nerd. He loves it, and he worked for 4 years on Rebels. So he was in direct talk to Dave Filoni, and was basically trained on the Star Wars lore by Dave Filoni, who was then taught by George Lucas. So anything that he says, fuck you if you disagree, because he learned everything from the guy who learned from George Lucas about George Lucas's world, about how the Force works and all of that. I've forgotten what my point is here, but like, you can retcon things, you can rewrite things, but if you're not doing it with the right people, with the people who know what they're talking about, and who don't just want to take this random idea and do their own thing with it, that will be canon in the entire thing. Like it. It will have you invite the entire fan base to disagree with you.
Sorry, Joe.
I was just going to say, I mean, we should probably look to moving on to our next topic. But one last thing I would say is, even though Nick, you are very keen on, presenting us as like being a legit lore source, I feel like sometimes. I feel like you got to just disregard lore and just be like, we're having fun. Like, we're allowed to, even if it's something that would never happen in the Star Wars universe, like, as long as, maybe if we, like, were to clarify initially, just be like, look, this is for fun. This, we're not insinuating this would ever happen, but if it did, this is how it would go.
I think I agree with Joe there, but one thing I will say is that the prequels, when they first came out, were received very, very badly. Although we loved them, we were kids when we watched them. Which means the nostalgia built it, and the shows built, like Clone Wars, built on that. But those a lot of the comics that were in Legends before the prequels came out, that wrote, they weren't written by George Lucas. They were written by fans. Some of the lore that was created in these comic books, what was imagined by these people. It wasn't imagined by George Lucas.
Yeah, it was imagined by people who know George Lucas as well, because George Lucas at the time was the manager director of Star Wars. Anything that would have been released he would have chosen people he trusted. That's what I mean. That's why he brought on Dave Filoni. I feel like I'm missing my point. I am open to things being rewritten. That's what I think What Ifs are good for. But it changes one thing about that universe. It doesn't change everything, and you can't create new characters for your idea to work. You've got, especially if we're writing a fan theory, for example, we need to make sure that we're just changing that one thing, and everything else from the lore is kind of used to progress that one thing. That's my point. It's like, oh, what do we change? We changed this thing. Okay, what if Padme was changed? That wasn't in canon. No, of course it wasn't. But we're changing it, and we're making it fit the thing that everyone is familiar with and everyone knows. Like, for example, in our lore, spoiler alert, Yaddle becomes Padme's master. Why? Because Yaddle has a special interest in legal matters, which is what Padme's whole kind of route would go down. Like in canon, we're still kind of have the same personality. It's those kind of things that are my point for when we're writing this stuff for What Ifs. We need to think logically about it. We need to think how would this work, etc., etc. Sorry.
Anyway, we should go on to the next topic. Also, Freddie Prinze Jr.
Freddie Prinze Jr.
That's who you're looking for.
Yeah.